False light does not arrive as darkness. That is the first mistake most people make when trying to understand control within spiritual systems. They expect manipulation to look harsh, restrictive, or obviously coercive. They imagine chains, rules, threats, or punishment. False light uses none of these. False light rewards you. It smiles. It affirms. It praises your compliance and calls it virtue. Where darkness frightens, false light comforts. Where oppression resists, false light invites. Where force provokes rebellion, false light produces gratitude. This is why false light is more effective than overt domination. False light never says obey, it says be good. It does not demand submission, it celebrates surrender. And it does not present itself as control, it presents itself as morality. This is where obedience becomes invincible. Obedience in its raw form is unattractive. It suggests weakness, lack of agency, and dependence. Few people will willingly identify as obedient, but when obedience is reframed as humility, devotion, alignment, faith, goodness, or spiritual maturity, it becomes desirable. People begin to seek it. False light understands something very precise about the human psyche. People will endure restriction, limitation, and even harm if those experiences are framed as moral or morally elevating. If obedience is rewarded with approval, belonging, or a sense of spiritual superiority, it no longer feels submission. It feels progress. It feels like progress. This is the core mechanism. False light creates a reward system where obedience is emotionally profitable. You are praised for not questioning. You are elevated for surrendering judgment. You are admired for trusting authority, and you are validated for silence. Over time, this reward system rewires perception. You no longer ask whether something is true. You ask whether it is approved. You no longer examine whether a teaching is coherent. You examine whether it aligns with what good people are supposed to accept. This shift is subtle, but it is decisive. The moment approval replaces understanding, control is already active. False light does not suppress inquiry directly. It makes inquiry feel unacceptable, unnecessary, immature, or spiritually dangerous. It reframes doubt as ego, curiosity as arrogance, skepticism as lack of faith. Faith in this context does not mean trust grounded in understanding. It means the suspension of scrutiny. And suspension of scrutiny is the foundation of obedience. This is why false light is always accompanied by moral language. It speaks in terms of virtue, goodness, love, peace, unity, compassion. These values are not false in themselves, but when they are used to override discernment, they become instruments. When peace is used to silence discomfort, it is no longer peace. When love is used to excuse exploitation, it is no longer love. When unity is used to discourage disagreement, it is no longer unity. It is management. False light does not attack you, it recruits you. It convinces you that compliance is evidence of growth, that submission is proof of maturity, that obedience is a sign of enlightenment. And once that association is installed, you begin to police yourself. You suppress questions before they fully form. You interpret discomfort as personal failure. You blame yourself for feeling uneasy rather than examining the structure that produced that unease. This is how false light produces stability. Not through fear, but through moralization. When obedience is moralized, resistance feels wrong, not risky, not inconvenient, wrong. And once resistance is framed as wrongdoing, control no longer requires enforcement. The individual enforces it internally. This is why false light systems are so calm on the surface. There is little visible conflict, little overt coercion. People appear peaceful, cooperative, and aligned. But that calmness is not the absence of tension, it is a suppression of inquiry. True clarity is noisy at first. It disrupts, it unsettles, it introduces questions that destabilizes certainty. False light avoids these phases entirely. It promises serenity without reorganization. It tells you that discomfort is unnecessary. That is a lie. Discomfort is the nervous system registering contradiction. It is information. When discomfort is immediately spiritualized away, the underlying contradiction is never resolved. It is buried. Buried contradiction do not disappear, they accumulate. False light systems accumulate unresolved contradictions and then manage the psychological fallout through further moralization. If you feel drained, you are told you are resistant. If you feel confused, you are told to trust more deeply. If you feel anger, you are told to surrender it. Notice the pattern. The system is never questioned. The individual always is. This inversion is critical. In systems grounded in truth, discomfort leads to investigation. In systems grounded in false light, discomfort leads to self-correction. Self-correction sounds healthy, but when the correction always points inward and never outward, something is wrong. False light teaches you to doubt your perception rather than examine the environment. It encourages you to distrust your questioning rather than test the structure. It frames clarity as something that will arrive later, after sufficient obedience. Later, again, in the most profitable word. A false light thrives on delay. You are not ready yet. You need more humility. You are not deep in the spirit yet. Your faith is not sufficient. You must surrender more deeply. You must trust the process. The process, of course, is never defined for you to understand. Undefined processes cannot be evaluated. What cannot be evaluated cannot be challenged. This is why false light systems resist accountability. Accountability requires criteria. Criteria require clarity, and clarity exposes mechanics. False light prefers mystery over mechanism. Mystery feels sacred. Mechanism feels threatening. Mechanism reveals how things work. Once something is understood, it can be assessed, modified, or rejected. Mystery preserves authority. This is why false light often discourages structural thinking. It replaces analysis with reverence. It substitutes explanation with awe. It elevates emotion over comprehension. Emotion is powerful, but it is also volatile. It can be shaped, it can be redirected, it can be conditioned. Understanding is less flexible. Once a structure is seen, it cannot be unseen. This is why false light prioritizes feeling over seeing. You are encouraged to feel peaceful rather than understand why you are peaceful. You are encouraged to feel connected rather than examine what you are connected to. You are encouraged to feel aligned rather than clarify what alignment means. Feelings becomes proof. Experience becomes authority. And authority without examination is always exploitable. False light also creates hierarchies whilst claiming to dissolve them. It speaks of equality, oneness, and unity whilst quietly elevating those who comply most completely. Those who surrender most visibly are rewarded with status, proximity, and recognition. This reward system teaches others what behavior is valued. Obedience becomes aspirational. At no point does anyone say obey. They say be humble. They say let go. They say trust. Trust, again, is not the issue. Trust without understanding is. Trust emerges from clarity. True trust will emerge from clarity. False trust is demanding before clarity is allowed. This inversion is the signature of false light. If a system asks you to trust before you understand, it is not guiding you. It is positioning itself above examination. Real guidance encourages independence. False guidance encourages dependency. False light systems often speak about empowerment whilst quietly discouraging self-authority. They celebrate awakening while defining awakening in ways that are non-threatening to the existing structure. You are awake as long as you do not disrupt. You are enlightened as long as you comply. This is why false light rarely produces mature individuals. It produces compliant ones, people who are calm but not clear. They are peaceful but not perceptive. They are spiritual but not independent. Independent is always the red line. An independent mind does not require constant affirmation. It does not seek approval for its questions. It does not outsource its discernment. False light cannot tolerate this. It will frame independence as ego, as separation, as immaturity, as danger. Notice how often independence is pathologized in moral language. You are told that wanting to think for yourself is pride, that questioning authority is arrogance, that stepping out of the group is betrayal, hence the betrayal of Lucifer. These framings are not accidental. They associate self-trust with moral failure. Once that association is installed, people abandon themselves willingly. This is the deepest tragedy of false light. Not that it deceives, but it convinces people to distrust their own inner guidance. A people who distrust themselves is infinitely manageable and controllable. They will seek reassurance, they will seek guidance, they will seek permission, and the system will provide it generously at a cost. False light does not need to punish dissent. It simply withholds reward. Withdrawal of approval is enough. Silence, distance, disappointment. Social mammals are exquisitely sensitive to this. Most people abandon their questioning rather than risk exclusion. False light exploit this sensitivity. This does not mean those within false light system are foolish or malicious. Most are actually quite sincere. Many are kind. Many genuinely believe they are helping others. Sincerity does not prevent them. Good intention do not negate structural consequences. This channel is not here to create enemies, it is here to review mechanisms. Once mechanisms are visible, you are no longer required to react emotionally. You can simply observe. Observation weakens enchantment. False light depends on enchantment, on emotional charge, on reverence that bypasses examination. When enchantment fades, obedience becomes visible. And once obedience is visible, it can be questioned. This is why false light fears clarity more than criticism. Criticism can be dismissed. Clarity cannot. Clarity does not attack, it exposes. You are not being asked to reject spirituality. You are being asked to distinguish between liberation and management. True wisdom restores internal authority. False light replaces one external authority with another, often more subtle ones. The test is simple. Does this teaching increase your capacity to see and decide for yourself? Or does it increase your dependence on guidance, approval, and alignment? Does it tolerate your questions, or does it redirect them back into submission? Does it invite scrutiny, or does it moralize doubt? These are not psychological questions. These are not philosophical questions. They are diagnostic ones. False light is not loud, it is polite, it is calm, it is reassuring. That is why it spreads like wildfire. This is why it is being implemented in cult societies. That is why it is rarely challenged. And that is why it must be examined slowly, without drama, without accusation. If you feel unsettled listening to this, Do not rush to resolve the feeling. Do not suppress it. Do not turn it into self-judgment. Let it sit. Ask what behavior has been rewarded in your own experience. What questioning feels welcome? Which ones feels dangerous? It is not about blame. It is about seeing clearly. False light loses its power the moment it is recognized as a system rather than a virtue. Recognition does not require rebellion. It requires attention. That is enough.